Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm one away from my 40th video and I still have no idea how to open these things. It seems like everybody has a catchphrase or something and I don't. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about watercolor class and show you all of the painting that I did. Back in July, I signed up for a 6-week watercolor course at a not so local to me art center. I was, of course, very excited and incredibly nervous. And as with most new situations I find myself in, I was extremely awkward. It became obvious pretty quickly that everybody in the session that I had joined had been in multiple sessions with the teacher and had way more watercolor knowledge than I did. I was also horrified to learn that there would be critique in this class, and it was kind critique. It was gentle critique. Nonetheless, I had dramatic art school flashbacks. And then we did the second most horrible thing I've ever had to experience. We had to go around and introduce ourselves with a fun fact. I feel like an idiot because I can never think of a fun fact about myself. I don't know, what's fun? I ended up talking about being on a couple of panels at Dragon Con and World Horror Con over the years. You know, if I had thought about it, I would have led with the Prison Acapella group interview. This class was supposed to be an all levels watercolor class, and I've used watercolor before, but it was nothing like I was expecting. Everybody seemed to have just an absolutely comprehensive knowledge of watercolor pigments and techniques, and I felt like I knew absolutely nothing, which is not entirely untrue, but still very embarrassing. I was, of course, not only the youngest person in class, but I was also the newest person in class. As if that wasn't awkward enough. Thankfully, everybody was very kind. They were very welcoming. Before the session started, we were actually given a selection of images to vote on to choose what we would draw each week. Unfortunately, none of the images I liked made it to the final round, and I really wasn't keen on the first reference photo that we were using. I'm not really an architecture girly, which became exceedingly more obvious because one of the guys in the class is actually an architect. So of course his Miami beach house turned out incredible. But this one is mine. I don't like it and I felt kind of ashamed. The things I do like about this piece are the shade of green and this peachy orange color I managed to make. I added the thicker line work to kind of give it more of a mid-mod feel. I don't feel like I really achieved that. And honestly, the only part I really like about this piece is the tree. I think it's a great tree. Didn't feel really strongly about this one. Felt very embarrassed. I wanted to throw it in the trash immediately after I finished it. I felt so bad about myself in this first class that I actually considered not going back. Kristen, if you're watching this video, it's not a you thing, it's a me thing. I think we both have art school trauma, and I'm sure you understand. But I did go back, which is all part of getting out of my comfort zone. The other thing was that everybody had pre-drawn their reference photos and I hadn't, thus the wonky building. But the other thing is that I sort of forgot that I'm not a realism artist. So even trying to paint something remotely realistically doesn't really work for me. I still felt like I needed to redeem myself. So week 2, we did this desert arch. I don't love it. I don't think it's bad. I was told to really push my dark values to make the stone archway stand out. I think I pushed it a little bit too far. I lost some of the details over here that I made by letting the watercolor feather. You know, I felt like I really redeemed myself with painting number 2. Week 3, we painted some plants. This is probably my favorite thing that I've ever painted. I think this one turned out absolutely stunning. I love the little splatter effects that I got. And again, I really tried to push my dark values in the background to make the center leaf pop. And because I had finished a little bit early, I had time to do a second painting. This one's a little bit more abstract, a little less background focused. I actually used the dirty watercolor water to antique the background a little bit. The one comment she had for both of my pieces was that my fancy little leaf friend looked like an anatomical heart, which honestly I am not offended by or opposed of. And then we got to week 4. We were going to paint clouds. I was actually really excited about clouds. Turns out clouds are really hard. And if clouds weren't hard enough, and if being afraid of critique wasn't hard enough, and if being the new girl in a group of seasoned watercolorists wasn't enough, Kristen wanted the clouds to be epic. So we had to get one of the things that terrifies me most in the art world. We had to get the big paper. This is 22 by 30. It is a full sheet of watercolor paper. I'm gonna have to film this like from across the room because it is absolutely huge. And I am terrified of the big paper. This is honestly the biggest thing I have ever painted, and I never want to do it again. And it was only after I had dragged this giant sheet of paper with me and completed this painting that I realized I could have just cut the paper. I think largely the stars kind of salvaged it. I hate it. I think it's so bad, and I know that I don't have to keep it, but I also don't want to throw it away and waste the good paper. And I realize how silly that sounds. Not to mention I still have 2 more sheets of giant paper that I should probably cut into smaller sections, to be honest. Know what else to say about it. I'll insert a picture of the first stages of the painting when I actually liked it. I really prefer the gouache clouds that I did with this Kiki's delivery service painting. I think they turned out way better, way nicer. I felt a little bit better because nobody liked their cloud paintings. I wasn't alone in hating my clouds. I think the value in the sky is nice. There was another lady in the class who is predominantly an acrylic artist, and she does charcoal and stuff. Her photorealism skills are spectacular, but every watercolor class, because she's used to using charcoal and wash and thicker mediums, she would just talk trash about herself, which was very much not cool, and of course made me realize that I do the exact same thing. I think we all do. I was there to learn, and trashing on myself for not knowing techniques and not knowing the names of watercolor pigments wasn't gonna help me. I'm trying to find the aspects that I like that I can take into doing other pieces. There's nothing that says that I can't start over and just do it again. The other super nice thing was everyone in class was so supportive. And as somebody who grew up with a lack of support around creating artwork, it was really touching and nice to hear people say that they were proud of me, whether it was facing my fear of the big paper or trying a new technique or actually speaking during class critique. It was just really nice. And that's something that I haven't experienced a lot of. Before I even really knew it, we were on class 5 and it was all coming to a close. And knowing that I wasn't going to be attending the next session made me really sad. For week number 5, instead of doing this like bicycle picnic basket beach scene, which some people did do, we did this pumpkin and cookies. Instead, I actually really like this one too, especially the cookies. I can't see anything. There you go. Especially the cookies. I really like the way the cookies turned out. They look delicious. One of the other girls in class said that she was going to make them her favorite flavor cookies, so she made them pumpkin spice. My favorite flavor cookie is lemon, so I made lemon bars. I also really love this corner over here. Blooming is one of my favorite watercolor techniques other than feathering, and this just turned out so nice, and I love it so much. I did have to finish this one at home. We spent the entire 3 hours of class just drawing and starting this, and then of course the last painting we did was a turtle. The turtle came out super well. I'm not in love with the background. I tried to do more of that like blooming and confetti because the background on the image is very like blurry and colorful. And as somebody who has never really painted or drawn animals, I'm very happy that this turtle looks like a turtle. Those are all 6, 7 of the paintings I made for watercolor class. I am genuinely sad that I am not in the current session, but I did learn some valuable things. I learned to relax a little bit when it comes to painting. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to like it. I think I've said this like at least twice now, and there's nothing wrong with just doing it again. Some of the other cool things was Kristen did a demonstration on making watercolor, and we all got 3 watercolor dots to use and play with during class. I'm really disappointed not to be attending this current session, and I'm not sure when in the future I will get to participate again. Despite my initially being way too hard on myself, I had a really good time, and it was so nice to take a chunk of my week to dedicate to doing something that I loved and to briefly be a little bit better about self-care. Your girl forgot to record the outro. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Let me know what you guys want to see next week. I do have a couple of Halloween things planned for later in the month, and I want to know what you guys are interested in. And if Halloween content is something you like, feel free to hit that subscribe button and stick around. Thanks for hanging out today. Go be spooky, and I'll see you next week. Bye. I am so glad I'm getting my hair done tomorrow. These roots are terrible.